Hey guys, it's me, Jason DeWeese Vids here. I'm gonna go on a limb and just say this. God of War sucks because it's not accurate to actual real world history. And technically, I classify Kratos as a distant cousin once removed. And I classify Athena as my sister, my twin sister, since how I was born right after she was. And yeah, I don't like how David Jaffe and Cory Barlog handled the whole Greek aspect of God of War properly. I don't like how they handle it. They handled it with such trash. It's not exactly a good game because they had like T.C. Carson voice my cousin Kratos, and they could have had like somebody like Nolan North voice Kratos, but they changed the name Kratos to Kratos, which was highly inaccurate. Kratos was not to be having his name changed to Kratos. I would staunchly implore people to not play that God of War game from 2005. Because the 2005 God of War was absolutely awful. I'm pretty sure that genuine Greeks would get just as pissed as I am that our culture is being mocked by David Jaffe and Cory Barlog. Those two are deep on my shit list. A real genuine Greek would get pissed as Hades would just get just as crazy pissed as Hades, or as crazy pissed as Ares, if not extremely pissed as Zeus. A genuine Greek would want blood for religious intolerance and blasphemous mockery and sacrilegious jokes taken at the expense of Hellenism. And don't get me started on the God of War 3 and those those flip phone mobile God of War games. And don't get me started on that shitty God of War Chains of Olympus. That was awful. All of the God of War games to have everything to do with the Greek culture absolutely sucked. They didn't even add the entire pantheon. Well, I guess they must have skipped God of War 4, adding in every single great god. And even adding me in there. And I'm one of those Greek gods who David Jaffe and Cory Barlog wound up ignoring. That's why I took it upon myself to call those two out. And the name Jason was to be respected at all times. Not be made a joke of. No, not to be made a joke of. And we all know God of War absolutely sucked. Fake. Absolutely fake Greeks applaud the game, while genuine Greeks have disdain for such mockery. Such mockery will not be tolerated. And if I was you, David Jaffe, and if I was you, Cory Barlog, I would have recanted those stupid depictions of my culture. I would recant those choices of developing those games and releasing them. Shit, I would have made Hades the bad guy, the ultimate bad guy, along with Kronos and Oranos and Tartarus. I would have made it to where Poseidon sits on the sidelines, and people would have no choice but to play as me in the better version of God of War. And forgetting about playing as Kratos. Because Kratos is not my brother. He's a damn cousin of mine, once removed. Kratos being conflated to being the protagonist. Like, what the fuck was David Jaffe and Cory Barlog thinking? Making that no good God of War trilogy. That no good God of War trilogy really pisses me off. And I am pretty sure heathens, Vikings, and Nordic druids would get extremely pissed as as Tyr, and as pissed as Odin, and as pissed as Thor for the inaccurate portrayal of the Norse religion. They would be calling for blood if they saw and truly got the full grasp of the insult, the religious intolerance and the insult that God of War is. We all know that God of War was a shitty game. God of War is awful. And it's no wonder why I will never buy God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. I will never buy those games, let alone play those games. And I tried back in the day to play God of War, and that shit sucked. That shit sucked. The boss battles were a headache. The repetitive bullshit of taking down enemies. The puzzles. What the fuck is up with the puzzle nonsense in games? The puzzles in games really pisses me off. They diminish the quality of the game. If I wanted to play a puzzle-based game, I would have downloaded or installed a brain puzzle game on my mobile phone. But I'll be damned if console games are gonna have that shit. It's bad enough that Resident Evil has puzzles, and you come up with that shit for ancient Greek culture? No! I don't want puzzles in games as such. And I would strongly implore people who are involved in Santa Monica Studios to make a proper God of War game where it takes place back in ancient times, the first half of the game, or the first game taking place in ancient times, and then playing as me in the first game as the Messiah of Hellenism, and me looking down from Olympus just to have them like playing as me, looking down from Olympus and looking down on America from Olympus and assessing if that would be a good place for me to start my ministry. And in the second God of War game, which would take place during the time of Jesus fucking Christ, where
I will make them move.
where people would still play as me, and for every one of those disciples of Jesus's try to enter the heavens, and me fending off those celestial invaders, just to send them to Hades by kicking their asses and putting my hands on the disciples of Jesus in the second game, beating their asses, grabbing them by their throats one by one, all 12 of them, and throw them through the clouds downwards into the pits of Hades, one by one, as boss battles. And in the third game, taking place in modern times of God of War, and at the end of God of War 2, they could have used me to enact retribution against Jesus Christ, the main antagonist of God of War 2. And then in God of War 3, they could have used me to get retribution on Yeshua, Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, and Muhammad, just to take those guys down. And those guys being the main antagonists and their followers, with Elijah and pretty much everyone else in the Gospels, and also in God of War 2, they would have been able to use me to wipe the floor with Paul, the Apostle. And in God of War 4, they would have had to use me to go to war with the Mesopotamian gods and the rest of the Canaanite gods, and to pretty much also punching Joseph in the throat for being an idiot. And they could have used me to completely turn Job against Yahweh in the God of War 2 game. And then just having God of War 5 taking place in my adult life, in my 30s to 40s, and maybe 50s, exterminating the leftover gods and followers of those gods of the Canaanite pantheon, whatever's left of that in God of War 5. And then the God of War spin-offs, which would have me helping Cain kill Abel. And how did Cain get his hands on some sort of weapon to kill Abel? They would have been able to explain how Cain killed Abel and buried him. And would have had to give the sickle of Kronos to Cain. And then having to not try so hard to coerce or coax Cain into killing his brother Abel. And then as the finishing blow, giving Cain a rock to smash Abel's head. And in the second God of War spin-off that they should have used me as the protagonist was to wipe out the Canaanite gods that are the primordial Canaanite gods and the second generation Canaanite gods. Thusly, me gathering up 42 testaments of the families of the 42 prophets of Baal to have them give me the justification to go and eradicate Elijah, and then be the one that was co-conspiring with Delilah in eradicating Samson, and then eradicating Lucifer, Mott, Satan, the Antichrist, and also helping Dagon find a nut, the Canaanite goddess, and the wife of the kidnapped Baal, and being able to be used in the true God of War game. But no, did David Jaffe and Cory Barlog ever decided to go that route of telling that story? Well, the only Jason in the Greek text, the only one, and and to have like a way to go and find Goliath's brother in the later half of the second God of War spinoff, to be found by Goliath's brother, and Goliath's brother telling me to go and kill David, to rid the world of David, ridding the ancient world of David. And to have David end up killed. Pretty much everybody who's everybody, in almost every person in the Torah, the Quran, the King James Version Gospels, being either the bad guys or the angry, disgruntled individuals of the victims of those three gods and their followers. It would have been a way better God of War game. The Greek culture is being like praised by polytheists and atheists and those who absolutely have pure hatred for the Quran, the Torah, and the King James Version Gospels, to use me as a literary and artistic game developing weapon of storytelling, and for them to get their justified revenge on monotheism. And them using me to hook up with Leah. That's in Leah with an L-I-A. Yeah, the same Leah. Leah, the sister of Sarah. And me banging her brains out sexually as a minigame. And gaining blessings from Zeus. And to tie the Rygar and Maximo franchises to the God of War game is to make Thanatos the bad guy who eludes me and becomes the last antagonist to be talked down from killing. And in the modern time, in the God of War 5, having Justin Bieber as the main villain, along with Miley Cyrus and that Ariana Grande and Billie Eilish being the bad guys. And I'm just saying, God of War sucks because Cory Barlog and David Jaffe did not take into account or consideration of that. God of War sucked all the way through. All the way through. And they had like a piss poor representation of me getting eaten alive by like eaten alive by one of those Cerberuses. I'm not happy about that. I'm just sick and tired of God of War. It just sucks. And if Cory Barlog and David Jaffe were to reach out to me before making the God of War games, and ask me if they want a and ask me if I wanted a highly accurate, highly historically accurate portrayal of the Greek culture and of the Hellenic religion, and bam, the God of War franchise would be mainstream of that kind. But no. Cory Barlog and David Jaffe rambling on about, oh, why don't we make Zeus the bad guy instead of Yahweh? Instead of Jehovah, instead of Allah as the bad guys? And use me as the protagonist, whipping the ass of Paul, and then whipping the ass of Moses. Yeah, but God of War fucking sucks. And the difficulty shit on that game is ridiculous.